What's up, everybody? Quick update. Thank you so much for jumping in on this episode. I'm so excited to share this with you. Our crowdfunding campaign for my brand new book, Mastering Adversity, has been off to an amazing start. The pre-sales of the book have, been flying, and I'm just so excited and so grateful for the support. Whether you sponsored the book, whether you jumped in on just a single copy, one of the offers for the launch party for the University of Adversity Summit, or the one-on-one coaching, this will impact your life. And I promise you that this is going to create massive ripples, and thank you for being part of it. Currently, right now, we're at just around 7,600, almost at 2,000, or almost at 10,000. We need a little bit more, 2,400 in the next 2 weeks or so. And I believe we can do it. So thank you so much for the support, this book. And while I'm writing and while I'm kind of like really diving into like what areas I should focus on, just having that support and that belief from you guys really helps. It helps grow the show. It helps grow the summit. It helps grow everything. So thank you. One thing that I really want to focus on for the next couple months also is the University of Adversity Summit. So there is an option to join through, and I highly recommend you do, to buy a bundle. You get a bunch of books, you get a ticket to the summit. There's also an opportunity that we're going to be announcing that you can get from, not through the crowdfunding campaign itself, but if you don't feel called to purchase that package, we're going to have other opportunities. So this is going to be massive. I've lined up 3 headline speakers that are just incredible. Like, you guys are going to love them. They're past guests, but they're, very high level. And my idea here is to bring all the past guests who have impacted my life and your life so much, bring the most high level, inspirational, knowledgeable people. And I'm going to do quick 30-minute live interviews with them. And we're going to really focus on an area that they are experts in at mastering adversity, overcoming adversity, so that you can walk away feeling empowered and with some tools. Like, we really want this to be an event that is about transformation. It's facilitating, it's igniting that transformation that we have within us. And sometimes hearing these stories is what we need to kind of be the catalyst to push us forward. And this has been a dream of mine and a goal of mine, is create a summit around University of Adversity, and something that I want to do annually. So this is going to be the first year. We're off to a good start at lining up some big guests, and I'm going for the limits. We may have guests that haven't been on the show yet. I'm going to try and focus on the ones that have been, but we'll see. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be May 21st, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to have a panel of speakers. I'm going to be interviewing them. And then at the end, we're going to have a group, like a panel, where we're going to have some interviews there. So it's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a bunch of half-an-hour interviews, then a panel at the end of each day. So it's going to be super, super jam-packed with value. And these people are going to be great. I'm going to do my best to pull out the gold like I do in University of Adversity, the podcast that you're listening to, but it's going to be shorter. It's going to be short, to the point. We're going to hit hard, and it's all going to be for you guys and give you the tools you need to get through the shit that we may all be going through at some point. And I want to be able to provide you with somebody specifically that can help you with that. So that's going to be incredible. Really excited to share more details with you on that, but I just wanted to plant that seed that is coming. So today's guest, I first learned about him through Aubrey Marcus, my mentor, through his podcast, and his journey through ayahuasca for many years. And I wanted to have him on the show. So we got connected through a friend of mine, past guest, Matt Belair. Matt Belair is incredible, and I would highly recommend checking him out. He's been on tons of podcasts. He introduced me to Hamilton Souther, Maestro Hamilton Souther, and we dove into all things ayahuasca, his shamanism, all of that. Hamilton is a master ayahuasca shaman who moved from the United States to Peru in his early 20s to find out if there is any truth behind mysticism and shamanism. He ended up becoming one of the few non-native men to be initiated into traditional ways of ayahuasca shamanism. So really interesting, because he's been there. He's done this stuff thousands of times. He's been with the medicine. He's really learned the ins and outs. He's wrote books about it. He just released a new book that we'll share in the show notes. And really, we got into the insight. We kind of unpacked what ayahuasca means to him, tied in a little bit of my story, what I went through. And during this call, I was fresh off the medicine. So this call was a few weeks ago. We wanted to wait to release it because he's got a couple offers that he's got out now, which is perfect timing. And we've had a few in the pipeline. So now we're releasing it today. And I think it's the perfect time. So I was fresh off the medicine in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica, in this funny little hotel room with yellow walls and just a different vibe and sketchy Wi-Fi. So it was, it worked out though. We had an awesome conversation and super grateful to talk to Hamilton, and highly recommend you guys go check him out. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's been on Aubrey Marcus's podcast a couple of times, which was really, really powerful. So if you guys aren't really feeling into diving into more psychedelic conversations, maybe this isn't for you, but if you've been listening this long, I really like urge you to come with a curious mind, open heart, and really be willing to learn, because sometimes these are the breadcrumbs that lead you down a path. And this could be the call, because we say you need to be called to it. And sometimes hearing something like this could be the first step. This isn't for everybody. You need to be really careful in how you do it and your intention with this medicine, but it also can be very powerful. And when you learn from people like Hamilton, the experts, this is where the really solid value is. He's also the founder of Blue Morpho retreats in Peru, which has been an amazing place for ayahuasca retreats over the last few years, last long time, actually. He's been open for a long time. So, but recently they've had to put a pause on everything because of COVID. Peru got hit pretty bad with all of it. So he's had to put that on side, but he's got some other projects that he's working on that we'll talk about. But yeah, really powerful episode. If you guys aren't subscribed to University of Adversity yet, please hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to this, or on YouTube. It's also available. And yeah, if you get value, share this, social media, tag us, whatever you want to do. And if you can, leave us a review. All right. So without further ado, Hamilton Souther coming right up. Here we go. Hamilton, how you doing, brother? Super glad to connect with you again, man.
Yeah, so good to talk with you too, Lance. How's it going?
Yeah, really good, brother. Yeah, so I'm currently down here in Costa Rica still. Just came off a massive week at Saltara. So I've been, really looking forward to connecting with you. And we had connected. I had first initially saw you on Aubrey Marcus's podcast. Then we hopped on a call, and I was just blown away by your story and everything that you're doing, man. So really, really excited to dive into this today.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm super excited to be on your show. And honestly, can't wait to hear about what's been going on also for you. It's been a wild time, it seems.
Yeah, as we were saying before, the lots happened since we talked. You've been up to a lot of awesome things, which we'll get into. I've, been in Costa Rica. It's been crazy. So, yeah, dude. So where I would love to start is just kind of, let's talk about this last year. Obviously the show being University of Adversity, I feel like this has been a really good starting point for a lot of my guests, because it's really been in real time, real life, like the shit that we've had to go through in this last year and the pivots we've had to make. And it's really identifies like, where we need to work on, where our strengths are. And yeah, brother, first off, like, how has the last year been for you? Walk us through a little bit about how it's impacted you and how you've had to adjust to everything.
Well, the last year has been unbelievably adverse and difficult in many different ways. I think it's probably the most intense, interesting, and difficult year of our whole lives and careers. And in our case, last March, the Peruvian government just shut everything down in radical quarantine. And everything just got shut down. So Blue Morpho, which was, our jungle lodge and sacred plant center for the last 19 years, just was literally shut off like that. And so we pivoted online, and we started just looking in ways that we could actually help people boost immune system, decrease fear, use really all the teachings that we had learned through the sacred plants and through the ceremonies and everything that we did over the years as a basis to be able to maintain our own strength, our own health, our own well-being as we went through what for the first 3 or 4 months was just truly apocalyptic, like absolute city collapse, martial law, military taking the streets, the police starting corporal punishment. I mean, it was wild for, people who were breaking quarantine, et cetera. And that tapered off around August, September, and kind of things went not back to normal, but, we're kind of gaining some strength, and people were stabilizing and the city was stabilizing. And just in the last 6 weeks, the next wave has started to hit the city, and we're looking like we're heading back into another state of quarantine.
Yeah, because you were saying that they got hit pretty hard with COVID in Peru. I wonder why you guys got hit so hard.
Oh, it has to do with population density, and especially in our city. Our city's the largest, most remote city in the world. It's over 500,000 people, and it's a very small piece of land. So there's unbelievably high population density, and the healthcare is struggling at times, and under normal circumstances it does really well, and under extreme circumstances it's just so remote, it's really hard to be able to take care of everybody. And with the population density and just the quarantine itself, it was a ripe environment here in the jungle to be able to ultimately contract COVID and pass it on. So in our case, our city, during the height of the first wave, we had over 93% confirmed exposure or infection rate.
Wow.
It really was apocalyptic.
Wow, man. Yeah, because even in North America, it wasn't to that extreme, but it kind of went back to normal for a while, and then things just started to go back for the second wave. And I just the energy around it, man. It's like, it's been so different coming over to Costa Rica and just seeing the different feel of the energy and how much it affects you when you're trying to create, and how much you're trying to just be in a different headspace. For me, it really impacts me, man. So I could feel the energy shift in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened, the quote unquote second wave is real, and it's happening. It might be a month or two later than people expected, but it's full on now, and we have to hunker down and ultimately live through it. And in terms of energy maintenance, you got to use the skills that you learned, all of the positive skills, all the ways to be able to stay strong, all the different ways to be able to boost immune system and use plants as a way to do that. And ultimately, maintain your core and maintain your center through all of this adversity. You have to dance with life, and in some ways, however you can, find the positive and the true positive that there is around you, and stay based in that love and stay based in that positivity and in a bigger picture, because the adversity and the rolling times right now is it's wild. It's unbelievably wild.
I feel like Mother Ayahuasca could wipe any COVID out of anybody, though. I feel like the power of that stuff, man.
The healing abilities of ayahuasca are still totally unknown.
I know.
The total reaches of what it can actually do. That's still part of study, and it's still part of mysticism, which is in one way really exciting. That it's still on the forefront of science, and it's still a great mystery.
Yeah. So I would love if you could kind of walk us through, how did you get involved with this powerful medicine in the first place? Because you've been doing it for a while, since early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
How did you get into this world of this mystical medicine in the first place?
Well, in my early 20s, I'd graduated from the university, and I had a spontaneous spiritual awakening. And in that spontaneous awakening, I just got really clear messages that I was supposed to go to Peru, and I was going to, ultimately find both medicine and people who were training in it, and that I was going to be accepted. It was kind of this whole, kind of wild story. And so I didn't really think much of it. I didn't think that it was really going to turn out to be true. I had a lot of doubts and, fears and concerns that I had just, maybe gone crazy or something like that. And so I decided I had to go to find out whether or not there was any truth behind the nature of the awakening and the visions that I was having. I needed to know one way or the other. And the scientist in me wanted to just go and test it. And so I figured if it turned out to be true, I would have to deal with that. And if it turned out not to be true, I would have to deal with that. It was a pretty binary scenario. So in 2001, I got on a plane heading to Peru for my first trip to Peru, looking for mystics and looking for medicine men and people of higher knowledge. And that was really the core focus. And I, was just told that I would travel around and I would ultimately be guided to the right place. And after about 70 or so days of traveling like that, I ended up in the Amazon, deep in the forest, and had my first ayahuasca ceremony. And it was in that ceremony that I had, really quite a quintessential and very intense experience that I've talked a lot about. It's really, really intense. It's one of the most intense experiences of my life. And in that ceremony, I saw that I would actually stay there in that location and that I would ultimately train there. Wasn't given specifics or details how, just that it would happen. And I thought that was even a crazier vision than the one that had taken me to the Amazon in the first place, because that was pretty rational. I was in an area that was so remote. It was 24 hours from the city that you could fly into. I was beyond the last inhabitants of the last little community of less than 10 families on a tributary to the Amazon. There were no inhabitants upriver from where I was. And so I was literally on the edge of where people lived. And I was told that I was going to stay there and train there. And what I didn't know was that one of the greatest living mystics of that time was living literally 500 meters downriver from that location. And so that was the big, mind-blowing revelation later, was that Julio, the great mystic that was living there, would ultimately take me under his wing and train me. And I ended up in a full-blown apprenticeship in 2002, 2003, 2004. And that led to, going deep into the plant medicines, deep into not just ayahuasca, but lots of visionary plant medicines in the Amazon, as well as hundreds of other kinds of medicinal plants, and learning the traditional medicine forms, and then being taken on what was literally a traditional apprenticeship, typically reserved for relatives or, blood lineage people. And it was just a fluke that I got accepted, and it was an unbelievable honor. And so in the early 2000s, I did my formal apprenticeship, graduated, and then together we opened up Blue Morpho, which became, one of the first primary centers for this kind of medicine in the world.
It's so fascinating because back then there wouldn't have been really anything to gauge on what you were walking into, right? Like I feel like, at least with my experience, I didn't know, but I was there was expectations there. Maybe that was good, maybe that was bad, but like what you're saying about these visions, that must have been really challenging because you don't know if it's real, or you don't know, because you haven't really, unless you were told about it before. Did you have any sources kind of walking you through like what to expect or anything like that? Or is it just these visions that you were like, holy shit, like what are these?
Yeah, no, it was all the visions. And I had heard of ayahuasca. I had read 2 firsthand accounts of people who had taken it, and that was all I knew of it. And I had only ever met one person that had ever actually taken it before I did. And his response was just, whoa, like that's all he could say. And then after that, God. And he was not a religious man, so he's just, whoa, God. And that's all I got. I mean, that was literally all I had to go on. And so when I sat down with the first medicine man to drink ayahuasca, in my case, we went out into the forest, we collected it, we made an area in the forest, a little clearing, I mean, very small, like tiny little clearing. We built a fire there. We cooked the ayahuasca literally in that clearing. And then that night we drank it together on the bank of that little river. And only he and I drank it together, just outside, and just right in nature itself. And wow. I was not prepared. I was not prepared for what hit. I had no notion of how strong it was. I had no notion of the dose I had been given. I thought from what I had heard that the people writing about it had to have embellished, because they said it came, faster than they could have imagined. They got swallowed by it. It was, stronger than the strongest riptide. Once you were in, there was no out. It was, vision at what seemed like the speed of light. They had, these ways of describing it that I thought just fundamentally could not be true. Like, how could this kind of experience actually be true? And so I thought it had been embellished. And by 17 minutes, half an hour into the ceremony, I wasn't thinking that they had embellished. I thought they had talked it down. Everything had flipped. It was a billion times stronger than what I thought I could handle. I thought I was like, literally on the edge of physically dying. And then I purged in every possible way, out the top, out the bottom, through the skin. It didn't matter. I mean, entities were everywhere. They were talking. The forest had not only was it alive, it was now conscious and could communicate with you. It was just buck wild. I mean, it was by far the most intense experience I had had in my life up until that moment. And it was a truly defining moment. I was taken through an entire life recapitulation. Like, life had been broken down to fragments smaller than a nanosecond. And so, it seemed like years were millennia, and everything was just so fast. So the visions each one was like a strobe light going off, and there were like 150 strobe lights worth of vision at the same time. The brain couldn't keep up. Every time it couldn't keep up, it would just cause vomiting. And then it would all start over again in another wave. It was multidimensional. It was multicolorful. It had every color you've ever seen and another million colors you had never seen in it. Inside all of that color and all of these like sacred geometry, changing geometric patterns that literally shook with the shaman and the entire forest at the same time. Like, that interconnectedness of nature was something that I had never experienced before and couldn't articulate at the time. And I was just overwhelmed, Mm-hmm. And then at the end of it, I was told I had found my apprenticeship and that I would stay. And that was the last vision I had. And I thought, this is insane. There's no way. How am I going to live out here? How am I going to live? I mean, they didn't even have the term off grid then, right? Like, this was without inhabitants. This was beyond people in the forest. And I was supposed to ultimately live there and, and train. And so, there was literally nothing to go on. And I found myself in the middle of that first ceremony, and it literally was just survive it. Just get out the other side.
Mm. Yeah, dude, it's so, I can't even imagine what that might have been like, because you wouldn't have had really good integration tools or even known what integration was. And
oh no,
like, even just even like thinking about any of these experiences that I've had, knowing that there's people around me and there's people to talk to about it and there's actual tools allows you to really make sense of it. But if I had gone through, like kind of one of my nights by myself, not really knowing, I don't know how I would have, like, what I would have thought, because I thought I was going crazy at certain points, but I kind of knew already that was expected. Right. So I just went into gratitude and just trusted. But if you don't have those tools, like if you're just going in, like that's a whole different story.
Oh, it was mind-boggling. I was thinking, is there anything truthful or real behind a spiritual experience? Just can that even be real? Is there truth to what was happening to me at that period of time? And there was, like I said, there was almost nothing written about it, and there was almost nothing really known about it. And so it was, truly blind, and the tools that you had the next day were what you could come up with. Nothing was shared, nothing was spoken about. There was literally no prep going into the ceremony. There was just drink this at this time. And then there was, the next day, okay, well, let's go. Let's get in a canoe and start canoeing upriver. Mm-hmm. And, for me, that was the integration, which had left me just in a state of awe and shock and just looking around, and realized that I was in like a completely new world, you know? Like in one night, my reality had expanded so far that I now knew that could happen, and that I could have that kind of an experience, and that was real. And it was a fundamental real experience, you know, and I just had to try to wrap my head around it. And I was glad that there was confirmation to the visions that I had had before that. And at the same time, I was, you know, so throttled and so impacted. I knew that I needed to take a few days and just kind of let things settle out.
Yeah, it's amazing when, you know, people talk about these different dimensions and, you know, entities, and it's kind of, if you haven't experienced them or seen them, it's one thing, right? It's kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of believe in them, I kind of get it. But then when you see them and you're in it, you're like, okay, I get it. Like, I understand. And then you know what's possible. Then it allows your awareness is just so much greater. And it's so powerful in that way. And I mean, I've only done it 4 times and you've done it thousands. And it's just like, it's hard for me to imagine like how much can get uncovered. Like each layer, like these different things just keep coming.
Well, I don't think there's an end to it, you know? Yeah. I think fundamentally you're going deeper into the unknown, and the unknown is truly limitless. Yeah. And, you know, you gain skills along the way. You become much more capable. I mean, you think about the ceremonies that you were in. There was a medicine man or medicine people and shamans guiding it. So they're clearly capable of being basically fine in that ceremony, not losing their mind, not overwhelmed, not, you know, whatever, any of the adverse effects, literally none of the adverse effects. And when I started, I just couldn't believe that you could ever transform enough to be like that. But the actual training that, you know, has been figured out over truly thousands of years of how to train in these with these plants and how to become a master of the plants, you know, ultimately got figured out. And it is truly a transformative experience that over time makes it so that you can navigate, and you have those tools and you learn how to navigate, and you ultimately discover more and more and more things. And it's, you know, it's been really exciting over the years when we've had what we thought were visionary discoveries, and then ultimately years later, you know, there's scientific reports on the things that we had been seeing or the things that we had been experiencing. So as we had been, you know, ultimately creating our own hypotheses and our own, you know, thesis, et cetera, about and theories about the experience and, you know, how far it could ultimately go and what we were seeing and what we were tapping into. We've had confirmation, you know, from all different sources over the years that what we were experiencing was fundamentally real. And that just, you know, fed into the desire to keep going even further and try to discover more and see more and understand more and really embrace that kind of openness to the unknown. And just be grateful to the fact that there's these consciousness medicines.
What are some skills that you developed through the medicine? Because there's so many metaphors, there's so many tests after. I noticed, I was just feeling it, and everything that you go through in that medicine can apply in real life. It's not like it's just something that you do in the medicine and then it just, life is completely different. It's like all the stuff that you're going through and learning, it's all transferable into real life. You know, like what were some of the things, some of the tools, like some of the metaphors over time that really helped you? Like what are some of the things that you had to, that maybe you were struggling with that you were able to work through and become better at overcoming?
Sure. I mean, there's literally hundreds, but some basic ones start just with the physical body. Literally just at body itself. And I think the most important skill associated with body is the breath. And you think about the way that the medicine men and medicine women in ceremony sing, and they take a big deep breath in, and then they sing for a very long time, like a very, very, very long time. They can chant, and you think like, how are they doing that? You know, how do they keep chanting? How do they keep chanting just on one breath? And so learning how to be able to use the breath like that in that kind of a cycle is unbelievably centering and stabilizing. And then becoming aware of different thought patterns. So once the breath is stable and the body's stable, you know, then you can start to actually use your mind to be helpful in the ceremony instead of the mind just being swallowed by the ceremony. And so then you can start to become aware, like, okay, that's doubt or that's fear. Okay, I understand that. I understand what that is. I can either stop creating that or I can release that. I can not do that anymore, and I can start to relax and do something else with those, feelings. Like you said, when you felt like you were losing your mind, you had the tools to go to gratitude. We always go to the heart and the heart center and just hunker down in there when the medicine's working on the mind. So you learn how to use the heart as a real physical thing. It's not just beating and not just blood and not just love, but it's actually a place where you can reside within yourself and, let things calm down. You learn how to be much more courageous and have so much more inner strength to be able to leap into the ceremony, to be able to courageously go deeper into it instead of getting scared and trying to push back. And so you really just move into the ceremony and with it. It's like surfing. It's like there's waves and you have to be on the kind of like being pushed by the wave, or you kind of get swallowed by it. And then you're trying to play catch up. So you learn how to stay in front of it and ultimately stay super positive and stay connected to source, universal love, universal energy, universal medicine. And then the ability also to invoke and call on allies and support within the ceremony that are ultimately there to help you. And some of them come from nature, some of them come from other plants, some of them come from the animals. And then also some of them come from our mythology and our greater understandings from both science and mythology, crossover into some religious concepts. But ultimately that's up to, each individual and their beliefs.
What are some things that you see? Obviously, this medicine's growing popularity, and anything we see, even in the health and wellness space or anything, people try and mass produce it. They try and hold these retreats and do these things, and it kind of waters down the real quality of it. And then people get involved in these different circles, and it can be dangerous. What do you see? Where do you see that? And what other dangers can you see with this medicine? To people believe, not dangers, but to be aware of, because it is powerful and there's a lot of respect that's needed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're dealing with something unbelievably powerful. And so when you're dealing with something that's actually powerful, and by powerful, I just mean can, rapidly change the way that you experience life very quickly. And so when you're dealing with something like that, you want to have the utmost respect. You want to understand that it's powerful. And so you want to know that you're in a safe place. You want to know that you're with people who are well trained. You want to know that the people there have your best interest at heart. You want to also, be in a place where you can be comfortable enough that you can feel safe in having that experience. And, I think then the biggest thing to do is to allow yourself your own beliefs and your own understandings. Instead of just believing what people tell you, don't, have your own experience and ultimately little by little make sense of that experience. But I think the biggest danger is just being told a bunch of, just made up nonsense about it, and then thinking that somebody, has authority over that and is telling you those things, that must be real. And fundamentally, we just don't think of it that way. We think of these ceremonies as a personal exploration. And so they're not requiring of belief. And so you don't have to, believe in anything before going into it. You just need to be open-minded enough to have the experience. And then, don't give your personal power away. Your personal power is your own, and you don't give it to the plants or anybody else. You sit within it and you cultivate it. And when you're really in a medicine space, in a medicine center, everyone there is for the same reason. They're there for human optimization. They're there for healing. They're there for exploration, growth, and learning. And that's what it's really all about. And all the negative stuff is ultimately about distortion or, playing around with the substances and the mind and playing with concepts and ideas that may or may not be true or are based in illusion or delusions. And fundamentally, you just want to stay out of that. So, do research beforehand that you're going to a highly recommended, really solid group of people and place for this. And then be open to the experience itself, and just, reserve your own beliefs for your own experience, and always know that you're protected within your heart and within infinite and unconditional love. And then I think you could ultimately have a very positive experience. And the dangers are, simply opening up in places where it's not safe to do so. And so that can be easily figured out by research and talking to the people involved, and, using your gut feeling and your intuition, and trying to get as much research as you can on a place. And, obviously understanding that if a place has been around longer and has a longer history, there's going to be more information on it. There's going to be more positives that are said. There's going to be more negatives. There's going to be a lot more opinion about it. And then you can go through that and see if that place resonates with you based on what other people have said, and based on, their accolades and their criticisms. And then in that openness to opinion, you can see what a lot of people have thought and said about their experience. And then you can guide yourself to a place that's obviously safe and really, really positive for these ceremonies.
Mm. You mentioned something earlier about kind of like, for me, while I was doing it, I progressed in dosage. And this was something that a real lesson came to me, was that the last night I went backwards. So I was like, and the download for me was, you're not trusting yourself, and you got to take enough medicine to kind of like, because I had such a powerful night on my third night. It was so mentally draining that the next night I was like, oh, I'm just going to have an easy night. I'm just going to take one. And I went in there, then the messaging was like, you need to trust yourself. You need to believe that you can handle it. And my night ended up being it was a negative experience as far as like compared to the third night. But it was a real test to be like, there's no such thing as like a free way out. You got to just go through it and don't be scared. And how important is that to like really be progressing through your ceremony, or to at least hit the level where you're taking enough? Because like that last night, I felt like I was almost in my head too much, yet we know we can do it. It gives you what you can handle. But at the same time, our ego's like, oh, I'm tired. I don't want to do that much, but it ends up being just as challenging anyways, because you're dealing with your ego instead of like the experience as much.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful. The way we look at it is, if you show up to ceremony, you came to ceremony, and you're going to have your ceremony whether you think you can or you can't. And that even includes people who decide not to drink at all. They're going to have a ceremony. They're going to sit there and they're going to be in ceremony. And what's important is the ceremony, not the consumption of any of the plants. The importance is the intention and the willingness to show up, to give yourself that amount of time to learn about yourself and to, have an experience. And some people's experience is just sitting in their heads thinking. And then they pay a lot of attention to the thoughts that they have inside their heads thinking. And the medicine people look at that and go, oh, look, that person's thinking and really believing their own thoughts. They're, like you say, stuck in the ego. And that will be the experience. In terms of dose, we think that it's important that you just have enough. So it's not more and it's not less. It's just enough. And there is this threshold in these experiences that where you've crossed over.
Yes.
Like you know it. You've crossed over into another state of consciousness. And that's enough. As soon as you've crossed over into another state of consciousness, you've had enough. Yeah. And if you back off before that amount, you won't have enough to get over that hurdle. Right. And then you really will be under the influence of the substance, but the substance it won't be helping you, because you didn't get over that hurdle. Right. So it's not able to help push you. So then you're left with it. And then you're left with sort of the weight of it. And you're like, dang, I'm here. It's in me. And I'm me. I'm just me. I'm not, the extraordinary version of me. I'm just a me in me, dealing with me with this. I have some nausea. I'm not seeing as much. I thought I was tired, but your head can just play tricks on you, and you have to ultimately, deal with that. So I consider that a very positive experience to learn how to deal with yourself and ultimately develop trust for the process and for the medicine. And then you ultimately can learn that, enough is not getting high. It's not taking a drug. It's not those concepts. Mm-hmm. Enough is having the ceremony and having the support of the plant and the plant energies. And so I've watched people who come to ceremony and they say, look, I just can't do it anymore, but I want to, I feel compelled to. And I said to them, hey, you can have the night off. And they're like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then they end up and they have a big dose, and it ultimately ends up being the gentlest night.
Yeah.
Because the ayahuasca itself knows the energetic condition they're in. And so even though they had a bigger dose, it actually backs the effects off, takes them really deep, but really gentle, and takes them on a completely different kind of journey. And, we get into this idea of trying to compare one journey to another, and ultimately it just does not work that way. Every journey is new, and it's its own journey, and you learn to trust that the ayahuasca is not just a same thing as like you would think of as a drug. And, that night is specific to a relationship that you have with those plants, and those plants' ability to know you and to work with you. And that's fundamental to the practice of, the traditional medicine of the Amazon.
Yeah, that was just such a powerful, thing for me to go through. Was my second night. It was, one of the scariest nights of my life. And I went into the third night thinking, oh, okay, I better just do the same dose. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to take more. I took more, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. I crossed over. And did it get a little bit scary, overwhelming? Yeah, but I had this I mean, it's hard to quantify in words, and it's like, I saw different realms. I felt this connection to life force energy, universal intelligence. I was like, this is the most powerful fucking experience I've ever imagined. And it was just so draining that the next day I was like, cause I was up all night, man. I had energy. I was writing. I was dancing. I was like, I've never felt like that in my life. And the next day I was so drained that I was like, okay, I'm just going to take half that. I'm just going to have an easy night. But you're right. It's like, it knows, and it rewards you for your bravery. It rewards you for your courage. It's like, oh, you really stood up to it, even though you were scared. But instead I backed off and I got my ass kicked because I knew inside I could have handled it. And that was the lesson. It was like, just trust yourself. You got this, and we don't trust ourselves enough in life. And that was my whole message for the whole week. And I think a lot of people listening as well. It's like, we're resilient beings. Like, we can handle it. We just got to trust and believe. And that's why that was so powerful. Cause I'm like, I get it. That's how life is. That's how we have to live. If we're not believing and trusting in ourselves, then we're never going to really get to where we want to go.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that's one of the beautiful lessons from that kind of a ceremony, right? You learn about yourself through that kind of an experience, and you can ultimately take something away from it that's really powerful. You have to trust ultimately the universe. I figured we were going to live in fear forever unless we learn how to trust. And so I figured, well, what can we trust? What's truly trustworthy? And then I learned, instead of thinking nature is something that's scary and separate from us, we are nature, and nature is ultimately trustworthy. It's completely trustworthy. And the universe also is trustworthy, and that, the plants are part of that universe. The earth life force is part of that universe. And this whole universe is ultimately trustworthy. And when you embrace it with courage and you embrace it with your own bravery, you are rewarded. You're instantly rewarded from having made that decision and treated your own life in that way. And we just get taught, different fear patterns and different ego patterns that hold us back. And they literally hold us back. They are ways that we ourselves auto-control and hold ourselves back from our greatest potential. And these kinds of ceremonies can help people, understand that, release that fear and release that doubt, and fully awaken to themselves. And then, harness that potential for their own reasons, hopefully good reasons, and reasons that, benefit others.
Yeah, that fear response, we're taught to run away or like it's a bad thing. But what I'm realizing, it's almost like a message that if you want the little rewards in life, those are the little fear. It's like that response. It's almost like, learn to love that, because you get bliss, you get joy from that. It's like fear doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? Like, I'm not saying go do stupid shit, like, and risk your life. But like those little fears that we're scared of, there's a reason. I feel like there's a reason we're getting that response. It's like, come do this, lean into this, because we're going to reward you with something on the other side. But we go, oh no, I don't want to experience that. I want to be safe. And then we kind of rob ourselves of that joy, and we play small, thinking about, well, what if I would have done that? What if I would have done that? Would I, and I feel like so many people in life are going through that as well. And it was just such a profound lesson to me, just take into my life. It was one of those main, tools. I was like, I get it. Well,
it's fascinating and fantastic. I mean, I completely agree with you. Fear doesn't have to rule or control our lives. I think it's there to be a warning system, and it's there to tell you when something's off. And otherwise, if you move past that, and you move past especially those little fears, especially in a safe way. I mean, that's what's really important, is that if you're doing this in a safe way, this is a great way to be able to learn and grow. It's not like racing cars or, super motorcycles, et cetera, like, big wave surfing, whatever, like these extreme experiences that are really potentially life-threatening. This is ultimately another way of being able to address those fears. It really is a lot more cerebral than people think. It's the fears happening here and learning how to deal with it. It's not the fear happening outside of you. And when you're in a safe place, it's not dangerous to participate in the ceremony. And so you can face those fears, get over them. You can typically see the origin of where they came from. You're like, oh, I learned this from this, family member, or this came in during this period of time in my life. There's usually some context associated with it that, is part of the visionary experience and helps you put the story together about it. And then, of course, there is the release and the moving beyond it, which I think is that, growth mechanism that's so special within these ceremonies.
Powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. So, obviously with what's going on in Peru, you haven't been able to have, your ceremonies and do those kind of things, but you've been pivoting and you've been working on some other stuff. And I would love if you could walk us through kind of that world a little bit, and really, the benefits and the importance of moving forward and how it can help people.
Sure. Yeah. We've had to pivot, like many people have had to pivot during this period of time. And so our retreat work, we all moved online. And we had been working on that for many years, of how to be able to work with people online, not just with visionary plants, but with all different kinds of plant medicines. Many of them are in grocery stores. Many of them you can just buy from a health food store. And so what we wanted to do and help people, especially when they were experiencing different kinds of quarantines and lockdowns, was how to be able to use plant medicines to be able to boost immune system and be able to stay healthy. And so we created the Trinity Retreat, which is a trinity of ceremonial work. And we get into the consciousness states necessary for transformation through different kinds of breath work. We have the Trinity breath work that we teach during the retreat. And then people make all different kinds of teas out of medicinal plants and take different kinds of supplements, et cetera, while we do fasting. And during that process, we go through detox and cleanse. We, cleanse the immune system, boost the immune system, and we combine the dieta experience and the cleanse and the detox plus the ceremonies, and then body work. And in the body work, we share yoga and qigong and our own body practices that we've created that really get somebody to get the physical aspects of the body moving and healing as well. And so we share all of those via online retreats. And you can find those retreats at bluemorphoretreats.world. And so we've been focusing our ceremonial spiritual work and plant work there. And also during the same period of time, we've been involved in some other projects, which are, long-term projects that are really exciting. We started a digital online platform called Sizzle, and it combines the internet and it combines blockchain technology and crypto technology to create a community-based biosphere, like a whole digital community for content creators, artists, and fans to all get together and benefit from the growing and the sharing and the propagating of the content and the community itself. And so as the community grows, everybody shares in the growth and value proposition and wealth proposition created associated with that. And we as a group really wanted to impact this issue of, content creators and artists who struggle financially. We wanted to try to impact that and give artists and content creators and fans of that art a whole new model in which they could, mutually benefit from supporting each other in the creation and the sharing and spreading of that art. And so Sizzle.media is it's in the process of being launched, and we're super excited. People are going to be able to go to the website and start signing up and become part of the original founding members of the community. There's a tremendous amount of benefit in being part of that original founding community. There's extra tokens that are being given out to that community, and they'll also be the start of what will be something that really changes the way that artists and fans ultimately benefit in value and financially from digital communities. Mm-hmm. So we've been working on that, and we've taken our time to be able to create that and share that. And then through this whole process, I've also decided to write some books and share some of the stories of these experiences. And so I have 2 books that are coming out. The first is The Mystical Secrets of Medicine versus Sorcery, The Untold Story of Ayahuasca, and it's a chronicle of my apprenticeship. It's part 1 of that story. So The Mystical Secrets of Medicine versus Sorcery, The Untold Story of Ayahuasca, and The Mystical Secrets to Money Magic, Creating Infinite Wealth and Success. So I wanted to write a book to be able to help people, understand how to be able to use these techniques and these, mystical practices to be able to help them in every aspect of optimization and life success, including the ability to create wealth and of all different kinds, not just financial wealth, but financial wealth included. And then, I wanted to back that up with the nature of the story of my apprenticeship and how everything got started, how we got started as a group. And so those books are going to be published on Amazon and available as well.
Wow, man. That's all been in the last little while too.
Yeah, literally it's all happened, and the different projects have had their own lives and stuff. So the going online and all of that started last year, and the books happened later in last year, and then they were going through their editing processes and stuff. And the Sizzle.media project has been in development for the last 3 years. So that's a really extensive project, and it's designed to, impact people all over the world to be able to help them ultimately have a much better experience digitally, and also a very different value proposition. When we were looking at digital communities, we were looking at these models that came out of the internet that are called freemium models, which everyone's familiar with, where you just go to a website and you can sign up for free, and you start getting having an experience from that. And we've learned over the years that that experience isn't as free as it's originally proposed to be. And so I thought that ultimately there could be an evolution or an advancement on that idea of a freemium model to, in the crypto world, actually a model that benefits you, a reward model. So not instead of it just being free, it's actually a reward model where you get rewarded for your participation, you get rewarded for the support that you represent to the growth of the entire community, and that ultimately then creates a new kind of digital community. If on current digital communities, as that community gets larger, you don't get any benefit from the growth of the community. If you help grow that community, you don't get any benefit from helping grow that community. And so we wanted to solve that problem and find a way to be able to reward the community itself in a new form of valuation and value mechanism. And crypto and blockchain technology made that possible. Tokenization made that possible. And it was something really exciting to us.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, there's so many content creators now. I mean, everybody's making content, and majority of the people I would think aren't really monetizing or capitalizing on the content that they make the way they could be. And I love the idea of, being rewarded for helping other people and consuming content and, actually yeah, like coming from a place where your content is just, it's not just about making money, but it's about really like helping build a community and helping add value. And I just feel like there's so many people that don't make content, or, you know, don't make enough of it because they feel like it's a waste of time because, oh, nobody's going to care. I'm not going to make any money. What's the ROI of this? And I've gone through that too, right? I've got, you know, so much content that hasn't been even put out and this kind of thing. And it's always like in the back of my mind, well, I don't know. Is it worth putting in the time for this? Right. And I think having something like that is really important because anybody that listens to a podcast or anybody that does anything now online is creating some sort of content. Any business you're in, especially in these times now, everything's online, right? You have to be creating content. So I think it's great to have a platform that can, you know, help people out that way and, you know, change the conversation a little bit.
Well, I deeply appreciate that. That was the goal that we wanted to solve, was how do you give content value again? Before digital, content had value because it was very difficult to create. And, so you can remember back to buying CDs or buying DVDs, et cetera, and then buying cassettes before that, records. And so that way, content creators, artists, et cetera, really got something for the content.
Yeah.
And then with the digital revolution, which was amazing, I mean, just fundamentally, throttling to the earth, completely changing to the way humans interact, truly amazing in so many different positive ways. One of the difficulties from it was that content lost its value. And it didn't just lose its value for just small independent artists. It lost its value for all artists. Tons and tons of artists, lost income streams. And it maybe didn't affect like the 0.0001% of artists in the world so much, but it really affected everyone underneath that echelon that, either could, just get by, or they could, make a living from their art. All of those people ultimately suffered and had to pivot in so many different ways to be able to, continue making a living from their art. And one of the things we wanted to solve was how to be able to bring value back to the content itself. And so, we looked at it and we thought, well, you can't do it under the current designs of the platforms, or they would. It's not like the platforms have an ulterior motive to, give you a worse deal. It's not really like that. It's all based on the core economics of the platforms themselves. And so we looked at it for a way where we could monetize it just differently. How could we monetize a platform differently? And we realized that we could, utilizing this idea of tokenization, and through a token, the token could ultimately go up in value over time. So your content, in essence, can go up in value over time. So, the short lifespan that digital content now has. If you receive something that appreciates in value over time for that content, then you're gaining value from having received that at that time. And that's, the beauty of this idea of crypto and tokens, is that they can go up. And we've seen tokens go from pennies to being worth literally thousands of dollars. And so there can be an incredible appreciation in the value of the way that you're being monetized and being supported for being part of this community.
Awesome, man. When can we expect it to come out, and when are these books going to be out?
Everything's coming out this next week. So,
perfect.
So it's all happening right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can go right now to sizzle.media and you'll be able to get the books on Amazon, and you can come to bluemorphoretreats.world and check out our retreat schedule as well. And, our products are there also. So everything's happening. Everything's, in the process of now being brought out to the public and ready for everybody to start to join in.
Yeah, right on, man. We'll have everything in the show notes so everybody can check you out. I'm definitely I'm definitely feeling called that I got to go to Blue Morpho or Peru to do the medicine again. I feel like so many people talk about Peru, and I'm like, man, I got to get there at some point. I feel like and obviously I want to go check out Blue Morpho, man, because I've heard such great things about it.
I deeply appreciate that, and we'll be looking forward to being able to interact with you and have you down here.
Yeah, man. Let's hope that next year sometime, or we'll see. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, you have so much value, and I mean, there's only so much we can get in an hour conversation. But like, dude, thank you so much. I mean, it's so great that you're releasing these books that go into your story, because people need to hear it. You got so many wise stories and so many tools and just so many visions. It's just like, it's amazing. So I can't wait for those books to come out, brother. And I really appreciate what you bring to the world, man. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Make sure to check out Maestro Hamilton Souther. Go follow his stuff. He's been on plenty of podcasts, and grab his book. Man, it's all going to be in the show notes. He's a wealth of knowledge, great guy, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So please hit that subscribe button if you guys did get value from this. Share this with a friend, leave us a review. It's all appreciated. And also remember that this medicine is powerful, and the more we educate ourselves with the right information, the better. You may be called to it, you may not. It's not for everybody, but I really want to provide you guys with the best resources and education around a lot of these different things that can help us get through the adversity that we're going through. And this could be a tool for you. So reminder, check out the crowdfunding campaign for my brand new book, Mastering Adversity. The link is in the show notes. We got lots of giveaways, or we got lots of offers there. If you want to buy a book for $25, we got a launch party for $99, $250 for the summit for a bunch of books. It's going to be epic. And there's one-on-one coaching with me. If you've ever wanted to start a podcast and you want to do it in 2 hours, I'll show you everything from start to finish, 2 hours. This is a steal for this. You're going to actually know how to set it up, launch it, and actually do it properly in 2 hours. And that is one of the bundles. So highly recommend you check out one of those, and keep your eyes open for the University of Adversity Summit. We are going to be doing that May 21st. It's going to be epic. So many awesome speakers are going to be there. I'm working on the most high level, inspirational people, and I'm really excited to have you guys involved. So much love. We'll catch you next time.